Hello guys, we're here at D3. We're here to talk about The Division, and you're watching us on Connected Digital World.
So thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us what your role is?
Right. I'm Fred, executive producer of The Division.
So tell us a little bit about The Division. You announced it last year at E3. It's a year later. Tell us about the game. Tell us what's changed.
Right. So if you remember last year, we had the agents early in the game. They were in Brooklyn trying to rescue the kidnapped police officers. And this year, we're actually on Manhattan. As the game demo starts, you see the camera panning down, and hopefully, surprisingly, it keeps going underground and ends up on the back of the agent down in the New York subway system that we all know. And from there on, it's just one amazing thing after the other until the end of the demo.
Excellent. So tell us a little bit about the game itself. Where's the game set? What's happened? Tell us that.
Okay, so The Division is an online open world RPG game, and in our fiction there's a virus that has been released upon New York City during Black Friday, and it quickly devastated the city. So it's on the brink of collapse. It's quarantined. All the basic services are shut down. People are dying. They're desperate. You have factions rising, either to take advantage of the situation or simply to survive in this very harsh environment. They're fighting for the scraps that are left in the city. And you're playing an agent of the Division, which is asked to go in and fix it, to take it back, basically.
So, is the Division a government agency or a civilian agency?
It's a government agency. It's in our fiction, it's linked to a real-world simulation of a pandemic scenario called Dark Winter. It's actually pretty cool. It proved that the whole United States was kind of closing down within 2 to 3 weeks, and they decided to end the simulation because things was spiraling out of hand, and they really didn't want to continue doing it until they kind of fixed all the basic stuff that didn't work in their disaster management. So in 2007 they signed a new law called Directive 51, basically giving the president dictatorial powers, executive powers, putting the constitution aside and enforcing martial law all across the USA in case of a pandemic. So we're using that as kind of the foundation and build our fiction upon that. So we're imagining that the Division was one of the answers to what went wrong in that exercise. So in Directive 51, the legislation, we're imagining the creation of the Division is part of that. So that's how it all started, from those real-world events and real-world legislations.
Okay. What else did you use for inspiration and research for the game?
We did a lot of research. We've been researching it for years. I mean, we've employed FEMA from New York City. We have ex-CIA agents consulting for us. We're talking to the NYPD. We've done multiple trips to New York City, talked to the council, the city government, and it's just amazing to get under the skin of a city that has a larger population than Sweden, and how do you make that work, you know? Just a funny fact of when we were visiting, I think it's like 18 tons of garbage gets shipped out of Manhattan every 24 hours. Can you imagine if that stops working?
Just for a day, that would be
exactly.
significant.
So, you know, just after a couple of days or a couple of weeks, that when our games takes place, you have these huge piles of garbage everywhere, and all the wildlife it attracts, and all the disease. So that's just one small detail of all the problems that you're facing in this scenario. But it's really interesting to research it, because reality is always more frightening than fiction, and then you just need to take that reality, try to make fun gameplay out of it, and put it into a game.
So you mentioned it's open world. How big is the world?
Well, I'm not giving you any metrics right now, but it's a very large AAA open world game. And I think the density of content and the realism, all the details that we want, and you won't be able to drive the vehicles, for example. So because we really found out when we tried this that it kind of breaks the experience, because you're just rushing by all these things in a fast pace, and it doesn't really make sense that you have a couple of guys in cars, and everyone else hardly have any food to survive. So to make this feel different from the New York City today, that was one of the important decisions we took.
Okay. So obviously there's a main storyline. Are there side quests, or is it pretty much just you're trying to do whatever it is you're there to do?
Well, we don't want to have your typical linear narrative experience with but it's so imagine that it's about you. You are the character. There is no predefined hero. You are customizing the character. That's the first thing you do, and then you have this systemic, dynamic world. So it's about the stories that you create by playing the game, and then obviously there's also a kind of a backstory or a back narrative. But when we're trying not to take the camera control away from you, so that's why we have this magnificent echo tool, for example, the echo skill, where the agents can data mine and recreate scenes and display them in a holographic kind of point rendering system, taking data from surveillance cameras, mobile phones, old hard drives, and recreating a scene. It could be a crime scene, it could be anything that tells you a story of how this disaster came about in New York.
Excellent. Let's talk a little bit about some of the weapons and technology. They're obviously a little futuristic in some cases. Yes. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that and some of the weapons and things you can do with them?
Right. So I think most people will be surprised that most of the technology and the gadgets that we have is on a prototyping stage, or something that the military is already using. So the popular perception of the capabilities of the military are kind of outdated. They're thinking 10, 20 years back, when they're thinking of the capacities of the military. They're already pretty sci-fi with their like super drones, and like they can see through walls, and they can do all kinds of crazy shit. And the Tesla trap, as we call it in the demo, for example, it's more or less, imagine a mine with a taser gun in it. So it's not that far-fetched. It's very near future.
Okay. So if I wanted to play the game on my own, obviously I can. Is there also co-op, multiplayer, online? Tell us a little bit about all the different modes.
Absolutely. So in this type of game, there's a seamless transition between multiplayer and single player, or co-op, if you will, and you can play the entire campaign or the entire PvE area either on your own or up to 4 friends playing together. And then there is this PvP area that we call the dark zone, that you don't want to enter too soon when you start the game, where it's more traditional PvP, so that's more than 4 people, obviously.
Okay. And is the game significantly different if you play on your own, or other than just playing with friends?
Well, I personally actually play. We play the game together every week on the team, and I usually play on my own. But I think the game really shines, and the synergies that you can find when you play more people together. Just imagine this: it's a classless RPG, so you're really defining your play style, the fantasy, as you progress in the game. So you're not locked into fantasy. You can just go, oh, I want to be the close-up brute this time. I want to be the long-range sniper medic next time, and you just change the loadout in the game. So that's pretty cool.
Okay. Let's talk about the trailer reveal from Monday.
Right.
Different type of trailer than you guys would normally do. So where did that idea come from?
Well, we wanted to. What was really important for me is that the CGI is not simply showing gameplay, but with more beautiful rendering. To me, that's kind of pointless. I wanted the CGI to be able to represent something that we can't show in the game. So the fall of New York City, for example, and all the emotions of ordinary people and losing their loved ones, that's not really part of the game. When the game starts, it's already where the CGI ends. So the devastation is already there. So I really wanted to portray the fall and all the emotions associated with that, and how it affects ordinary people. And I think that was an incredible, beautiful script that Blur came up with, and they really understood what we want to do with the IP and the tone that we're looking for. And I think it's a beautiful interpretation of our fiction.
Obviously the game's called Tom Clancy's The Division. How much involvement did Tom Clancy have at the start of the project?
Well, you mean Tom Clancy himself?
Yeah.
Or, well, it doesn't really work like that. Ubisoft, they bought the whole Tom Clancy franchise like 10 years ago, so it's more like an independent franchise on its own these days. And of course, he passed away or 6 months ago, or what it is now. But the challenge for us was to go back and find what was interesting with Tom Clancy when the books came out in the 80s. What made it so interesting? Why was it a bestseller year after year after year? And it's all about, in our interpretation, it's all about the fear of the nuclear holocaust. You know, the Cold War is just a proxy, really, for the fear of the nuclear holocaust, if you want to call it that. And nuclear weapons is not really on the agenda for younger kids anymore. It seems to be almost like an old threat, you know, old type of weapon or something. But it's rather environmental, the environmental problems that we have, you know, the bio threats, the terrorist attacks, and we didn't want to go all terrorist again, you know, like let's stop the terrorist before he blows up the bomb. We wanted to make it feel fresh, new, energize the franchise with something that's probably more relevant and more clear and present danger to people today than in the past.
I like what you did there with clear and present danger. So when is the game out and on what formats?
It will be out 2015 on Xbox One, PlayStation 4 and PC.
Great. Are there any plans for differences between the versions, exclusive content, or is it a little too early to talk about that?
It's a little bit too early. I think we need to focus on shipping the first one first.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching. Why not subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking on the link on the screen now.